Welcome to the RevOps Loop podcast with Maarten and Stjepan, brought to you by Digital Reach and the Nonprofit Tech Shop. Get ready to learn about revenue operations, HubSpot, and beer.
Hi folks, this is Stjepan and we are here for the episode 5. We are doing something different this week. So we want to share the RevOps stories, basically what we experienced in the last month from the RevOps trenches, working with customers and then on our own individual goals and upskilling. So with that, I'll just kick it to Maarten and we can start. Hopefully this will be fun for you guys to listen. So Maarten, kick it off.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks, Stefan. So, yeah, I guess like you mentioned, right, the idea is to talk a bit more about real life scenarios, things we've bumped into in the last few weeks. So a little less, going through concepts, but just more real stuff. And as soon as we decided on this, the first one that I jotted down, it's kind of a recurring one, I guess, but for anyone who's worked in B2B and B2C, at least for me, it's always a little bit of a transition I need to make in terms of mindset. So we work with the clients on both sides. And the main thing I feel like is if you're used to one or the other, that's kind of how your mind works. And so I've always worked in B2B. And so when it comes to things like a client reaching out saying, hey, we have some data hygiene issues, we have multiple contacts and things are flying around and we have a lot of data living in different places, instantly I'm going to sort of the B2B playbook of, okay, company level enrichment and then making sure associations between contacts and companies and deals are accurate and then merging folks based on company emails and not personal emails and all of that. And then now we have a couple of these clients where we have these data hygiene projects, but they're very B2C focused. Either they're B2C or they are nonprofits, right? We work with a lot of nonprofits as well, whose CRM consists of constituents and just people, right? And so data just inevitably is going to be a bit messier in those scenarios anyway. And any kind of data hygiene project require a completely different approach that I always find interesting to sort of reflect on. And so a couple of things that we've been working on the last few weeks, and again, very typical to these B2C scenarios, is not looking at automated enrichments, right? Like all these tools that we know, even the HubSpot enrichments, the built-in features that are there, they're all B2B focused. Can't really rely on that because we're not looking for people's company information, right? We're looking at just their physical address and their personal email. And if they're coming in through a call, on one hand, and then we got folks knocking doors and they're filling out a form, collecting information on the other hand, and then they're coming in through one of our ads. How do we merge all that together? And so one of the things we always land on there is first party data and the importance of, or the additional importance really, of using that in a B2C landscape, meaning not just, collecting general information, but as much as you can. So email addresses, zip codes, addresses, and instead of just bombarding folks with questions about where they live, how do you work that into a marketing sequence or cadence that feels natural, right? So you're collecting this information, but you're not, hey, I want to download something and now I need to give you my social security number, so to speak. That's always an interesting challenge. So that's one that we've been working on quite a bit in the last few weeks, is finding ways in sort of those top middle funnel engagements that in this case nonprofits have with their constituents on collecting that information in a natural way. It shouldn't become a blocker for folks to convert, right? To put it in those terms. But it's still something that you need to put extra emphasis on, especially in that B2C world, just because you don't have as much of that tools and the typical tips and tricks that I think you learn in B2B marketing that you can't really use there, right? So that's a main one. I don't know, Stjepan, is that, you've worked with nonprofits, and I know you've worked on these sort of contact hygiene projects as well. Does that ring a bell? Is that something that sounds familiar at all?
Yeah, it's familiar, but I wanted to kick it back to you immediately so I don't forget my question for you, and that's what are some ways that you do solve that? Like the first
Yeah.
party data, the enrichments, what are some ways just so our audience can maybe see where we are
Yeah.
digging that answers. Yeah.
So there's like, I guess there's like a fun way and then sort of the boring way. Well, there's two answers really. One is the fun one is thinking of creative ways to collect information, right? These are like quizzes and polls that you put out. And one thing that we actually now set up is we started working with not a direct mail service, but a gifting service, right? So we can send physical gifts to folks. And these are usually not super expensive, but the general call to action there would be something like sign up, right? Join our movement kind of thing, and we'll send you a little welcome package and some cool stickers that you can put on your card, these kind of things. Great. Obviously, you need an address to do that, so you're collecting the address information that way. Address information that we then use in our CRM. We have a custom coded solution there that looks at address and name and contact information and sort of spots potential duplicates and merges them that way. So that way you're not just reliant on one email address, which is not always going to be collected. But so we use that. And so gifting and direct mail kind of solutions, that's an obvious one. If you're able to include that to get that physical address information, and then just having some kind of solution in your CRM that uses that information, the address data to merge contacts, right? That's the main one. Again, I said we use a custom coded solution in this scenario. There's a ton of tools out there at this point. I know you have Qualified. There's what's the other one that we've used? I'm blanking on the name now, but there's a ton of these.
Qualify, Qualify, Incycle, Tray,
Insightful, that's the one. Yeah, well,
Tray.io
Trey,
is one
exactly.
of the biggest one that we
Yeah,
use. And like when you're saying custom code, I know like maybe some of our listeners are not, they don't know what it is, but basically it's the way that you leverage and build scripts directly inside HubSpot so you can like extend workflows and stuff. So yeah, and
yeah,
then like what I had maybe like, let's say, hurdle that I need to go through the last month was how to explain technical stuff to the other side, the stakeholders that are not so technical, and how to
perfect.
approach that,
Transition
because
here. Yeah,
there's a like a project that's signed, but there's like so much technical stuff they cannot see the immediate build because it's on a server, it's a script, the data is flowing through different systems, and it takes time, but we also need to get the requirements and also need to make sure that the end user or the main stakeholders know what we are doing, so we don't need to rebuild it a couple of times. So the way that I was approaching it, like at the beginning, I was okay, explaining it in a technical terms, maybe slightly like making it easy. But then after like 2, 3 weeks, I understood that like I need to just like double down on making it very easy. So I use a tool. You also use that, but like any kind of whiteboard tool, like Lucid, and make it with like the objects, what they represent, the lines that are bidirectional or one directional, big logos of the systems that are interacting, and then just don't mention the script at all or server or anything. Just like I use like a AVS icon, and I said like this is where the data goes first, then the script does this magic, and then this is how the data goes to your HubSpot. And making sure they understand that they just need to be worried about what we are collecting from the one system. So I know all my properties and fields requirements, and then don't even worry about what we are doing. Just let us know what needs to be inside HubSpot, and
right.
then suggest what and how we associate it. And when I
Yeah,
started doing that, like bi-weekly, sending those little little diagrams, the project started feeling more natural and more easier to handle on both sides and everything. So that's just like an
yeah.
approach that I recommend everybody when you identify that the other side maybe is getting confused a lot in the meetings.
Yeah. I guess, I guess what I would add to that, right? And I know you kind of touched on that, right? But when you're then explaining, again, let's take something like custom coded solution and 3, 4 platforms that are integrated, and there's a whole intricate system there about how objects are cross matched against systems and all that. That's not really relevant for anyone except who's actually building it. When you're going about explaining anything like this, and again, what I would typically do, right, is it's a different explanation depending on who you're talking to. And so I'm always trying to explain it just from their point of view, right, where it's if you're a sales rep and you're primarily working out of Salesforce and we built this whole system that plugs in 5 platforms to sync to Salesforce, etc. That's not super relevant, but just then I'm going to explain it from sort of a Salesforce point of view. When you log in, what's going to be important is that you see this, this, this. Right now you don't see this, but you're going to be able to see this if you fill in this property. So explaining it, I guess, from different teams' points of view. Similarly, you would then also have, I guess, a bit more of an in-depth explanation to folks who would be acting as admins in a way, like people who are overseeing the solution after you've built it. There, you obviously need to go a little bit more in depth, but kind of a similar approach. From their point of view, what are they looking at? What are the dashboards and integrations platforms that they need to look at and keep an eye on, and the indicators that something might be wrong, and where should they go to troubleshoot, that kind of thing. So I think that's the only thing I would add to it is I'll usually do the same explanation 3-4 times, explaining the same tool or process, but just from 3 or 4 different angles, and then just keeping it to exactly what they're going to be seeing on a day-to-day basis, and explaining it from that point of view. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that approach because like you're not always talking to the same stakeholders. You're talking
Right.
maybe to the
And
sales team and then to the marketing team, but they are all interested like what are you building? And then you
yeah,
just need to make sure you're not like saying everything the same to the different departments, rather
yeah,
making sure that, oh, let's just focus what you will see. And then is that correct? Yes, okay, so we can do that for you if, and
yeah,
then you get the understanding of the parts that are they're most
yeah.
interested in, and then you make sure
And
that you're always updating them how that part is going. Yeah.
and I feel what it also does, at least in my case, it it helps you identify also potential gaps in the system. Like we've run into several of these at one point. This was not last month. This is a bit of a while ago, but where essentially we were chatting with the marketing team within a company, and we were setting up a whole new sync of data between systems. And I guess to boil it down, what it came down to at one point was, yep, we can sync data using this identifier. It was sort of like an ID that was coming from a different platform. Doesn't really matter. It was a certain ID, and yes, that's always going to be there because sales will always provide this in this step. Blah blah blah. Okay, that's all we had to go on. That's what we built everything on. We had these nice visualizations, maps, everything. Everything worked with that ID that we were going to be using as an identifier. Doing that exercise or then running it through the point of view of the sales team and chatting with some of those guys, we were walking through it. Turns out, long story short, that there was no mandatory step. This was just to fill out this ID. It was kind of like a recommended, strongly encouraged from management kind of thing, and it was a typical discussion point within their organization. And every week, whoever had 100% accuracy of filling it out, they'd give it a round of applause. And some folks who were at the bottom of the list, like anyway, it was kind of like an inside joke of, oh, we should be getting it. We know we should be filling it, but we're not always doing it. And then we were like, okay, wait, you told us this is like the source of truth ID. It turns out that this is kind of like an ongoing issue that you're having, and you're trying to get everyone to fill out, but it's not 100%. And that was a typical one where we only noticed, I think, like 2 weeks in. So obviously we were still scoping everything out, so it was fine. And we this is where you have to do your homework before you start on a project. But I just thought it was interesting that, okay, it's good that we actually had that full walkthrough with the sales team. Otherwise, we would have relied on this ID, because from marketing's point of view, they just thought, oh, this is an absolute source of truth identification property that we can use, and they're telling us, the provider, to use this to build out this whole complex integration, when it's actually there's nothing reliable about it. So yeah, there's multiple use cases to approaching a project from different point of views across the team. That's for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So what other stories can you share in the last month?
Okay, I have another one. This one, and I feel like for everyone who works in RevOps, it kind of resonates. Is the whole vibe coding term. I'm not sure if I really like it. You read it a lot. I know there's some people on LinkedIn who don't like the term, it's not really coding. And I agree, it's not really coding. And if anything, sort of the experiences that I have with it help highlight that point that it's not real coding. Two things really. One is I vibe coded a solution on Google Tag Manager a couple of weeks ago. Nothing too complicated. It was sort of a widget that needed to be installed. I needed to go into Google Tag Manager, set up some script, and then go into the website and set up a placeholder for that script. Now I'm just saying, like, if that sounds and you don't really know exactly how to go about doing that, that was my approach to it as well. I have no idea. So I'm pulling in ChatGPT, Google Tag Manager assistant, setting it up. Worked perfectly. I think I have enough understanding of how coding works that it can make sense at the time, and I can figure out what I need to do. Anyway, set that up, install this placeholder on the page, and then there was a small issue with it. A couple weeks later, there was an update happening to this widget, and then someone reached out saying, "Hey, we need to make this change." At this point, I looped in our development team. So like, "Hey, we need to make this change," and then they came back with some questions. "Hey, I see you placed this placeholder tag, and what is this for, and what is it exactly supposed to do?" I have no idea. Like, I remember at the time it made sense. I had no idea. And this is where you see the difference between vibe coding and sort of superficial understanding. I know enough to make it make sense at the time, but if someone asks me a very simple question like, "Why is this placeholder tag here and what's it supposed to do?" I'm like, oof, I need to dig back into the scripts and figure out where that came from. And I think this is where, at the end, you're kind of, I guess overall, you're still saving time, right? But you are wasting some time on that side of things, troubleshooting, quick fixes, quick explanations as to why things work the way they work. And I think this is where, yeah, it became painfully obvious that I'm an amateur vibe coder at best and not a developer. And those are just scenarios that, it's not going to prevent me from doing it. I still think it's great to use these AI assistant tools to get some basic code. You also learn while doing it, so it's great. But it's just one of those downsides, I guess, to be aware of. That hey, every once in a while you're going to get a question on your work. You might not be able to, it doesn't roll off the tongue what exactly the solution is, as it would with
it's yeah, but like what you can do is like I do it sometimes. Is like when I wipe code, I ask like, can you give me a summary in like a couple of sentences? Why are you doing what you're doing in steps? And then I can learn like the logic. So for example, I use Lovable when I do like wipe coding. I build a web app where you just put all your subscriptions. And it has a dashboard and you can track them, and it even suggests you which ones you can like have a family package to save. I will share it with you. That's like, so I built it because I thought like it's cheaper for me to try to wipe code it and learn than to like subscribe to some other app. So it's pretty good. But like I listened to a podcast or a talk on YouTube where Dharmesh, the founder of HubSpot, he said that he thinks that in sometime, maybe not like maybe in near future, there will be a marketplace where anybody that's wipe coding will need to hire a developer to go and investigate the code in any tool they're using, like Replit, Lovable, Base 44, whatever, and then just try to fix and troubleshoot the issues. Because whoever is wipe coding, and you just mentioned that, is you get stuck at some point. You try to do a prompt, you maybe use GPT or Claude or both, and then it changes something that's like now even nicer, but the issue is maybe the same. It stays the same. It's nothing happening. So then you do it again, and then at some point you're just exhausting all of your credits and you need to go to another tier. So that's like, this happened to me a couple of times. Now I'm like more careful how I do it. But the point is like, I think everybody should try it because it's very fun. So like my brothers are both like developers, and I always like admired how they built something. And I had a lot of ideas, but there's like they never had so much time, so I can like pursue them to like build me something. Now I just have like an idea and I like start doing it. and
Yeah.
I learn as I go. Maybe something is good for me, something is not. So like
Yeah.
it's pretty good, and it's getting better and better. And I think with like
Yeah.
HubSpot, with the connectors, with any GPT or Claude, and maybe some other like Replit. I know you're using Replit a lot. Like you can then use the APIs, get something, change it, build a clean user interface for some like an end user, so
Yeah.
and do it that way. So I think
I think
it's
because
worth a try. Yeah.
for sure. It's also at least because I think I do the same, kind of building these little apps on the side from time to time. It's almost like a game in a way. Also, the way that you get that instant gratification through like a Lovable or a Replit, where you put something, your initial prompt in, and this could just be you explaining kind of what you want, and right away you get an initial visual of what your app looks like. And I feel like at that point you're kind of hooked. You're like, ooh, okay, now I want to make this change and this adjustment, and then at that point it just becomes a game. I know I created this app to go to the gym, and I wanted something to like track the weights I do and all that kind of stuff, and then I guess a bit counterproductive at times because sometimes instead of going to the gym on my lunch break, I'm actually like updating the app, which is kind of, I guess, not really the point. It's supposed to make me go more to the gym, but it gets addictive in a way, and it's true that you do learn. And actually, on that, so one other scenario that I bumped into there is with Replit. Actually, we were building out these apps. In this case, this was for work. I was trying to create a CRM visualizer that essentially pulls out all the information and then puts it into a visual diagram of what are the different objects and what workflows are currently setting stages and etc. Because that's a typical thing. We spend a lot of time at times troubleshooting into a portal, especially the messy ones where multiple people have been involved, trying to figure it out. Anyway, trying to create an app, pulls all that out and visualizes it for you. And then this is where I kind of had to back out a little bit because we hit a bit of a dead end in that I had set up this app and initially it worked quite well. We were using some SQL language to set up some sort of database, like a relational database sort of thing that could then be transformed into a visual, almost a lucid chart, Miro board style overview. Now, what I didn't realize and the app didn't realize is that there's a hard limit there. And again, without going into the details of it, I guess, is that SQL works for these kind of relationships, but it's a bit more rigid. And what I needed was more of what is it, Neo4j script, if I'm saying that right, where it's a lot more relational. And you have different objects that have different types of relations with other objects. That's essentially what I needed. Like if a workflow triggers something versus a list versus a form. Anyway, all of that to say that I kind of needed to back out of my Replit. We were going back and forth, going nowhere. Open up a couple new tabs and just start, I guess, studying a bit old school of like, all right, what are the different coding languages out there? I need something that essentially can build relationships like this. Eventually found out, went back to Replit, say, okay, we need to start from scratch, right? I need a Neo4j database. Started building it out, and now we're actually in a much better place with it. So again, I guess a good example of sometimes you're going to run into that limitation if you're not a coder or a developer. You wouldn't even really know it. So sometimes sometimes you still got to go old school and just do a little bit of homework and learn what exactly does what before you can make any kind of real progress. But so yeah, now I learned the difference between SQL and Neo4j. Probably forget it in a few weeks, but that got me over the hump. At
Yeah,
the
it's
moment.
it's 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 like always you need to always stay curious, especially in the line of work we do.
Yeah,
It's like you need to learn probably on almost every day something new because the technology is like growing so quick. There's a lot of AI builders out there. There's a lot of things, and then like you just need to make sure that you understand what you're like trying to get the AI to build, and
right.
yeah, that you need to learn it so you can like do a good prompt engineering for the AI if you ever want to have it fully functional. So
Yeah,
yeah, and
typical
that
issues
like
we run into.
yeah, and yeah, that leads me to like the just the one that I want to share, and that's like something that I'm seeing on LinkedIn a lot. Is like HubSpot rolling out a lot of features and
Hmm.
tools. So it's like keeping, like the issue is keeping up with HubSpot product updates, especially when you're managing
Right.
clients with an SLA, like over like a year, or maybe they committed to two
Yeah.
years. And like we use HubSpot. Somebody may be listening to this, maybe they use Salesforce, maybe they use Zoho, whatever, CRM or any other product. And if they're rolling a lot of features, and especially now everybody's adding AI, and then on top of AI they're building something else, it's like, how do you be successful keeping up? And how do
Yeah.
you categorize and identify what's good for this client versus this customer versus this? So
Right.
my suggestion and how I approach it is, because I couldn't like log every time, like before work or after, go to the product updates, see all of them, and then like remember it. So what I
Right.
did is just like, I focused like, okay, let's just do two marketing, two overall, two maybe sales in a week. And then I need to like categorize sometimes and make sure, does it provide value? Is it currently so early for that tool or feature to even be introduced to the client because it's buggy? And we talked about that, I think, on our like second or third episode, is like the enrichment tool, or like the breeze agent. So like you can chat with it, it can summarize a contact, but like some other like basic stuff that you maybe ask it, sometimes it gives you a good answer, sometimes it just says, it just stops and says like, I couldn't find this contact, even if you put up like a first name and a last name. So
Yeah.
then what's the approach? How like, why do you even go to the client and
So
say like, you can use this, your team can use it, but then it will cause any friction? So what I do, I have a Notion, I just copy a link from HubSpot product update, and then like make a time block on a calendar, maybe when it's
right.
not so like meeting heavy, and then just try to use it and test it in a demo portal.
Yeah.
And then if it
Okay.
makes like, and I just like say value yes no, and then move on,
Right. Okay.
because
Yeah.
you don't want to overinvest on all of the product updates, because some of them are just like fancy tweaks that
Yeah.
maybe doesn't make sense for you to like invest in it and like talk about it with clients, because it's not saving more time, it's not saving more money or anything, it's just like
Yeah.
something to like nice to have, but it's not something
Yeah.
that is that's like doing the
Yeah.
like their calculation correct. So yeah,
So
I
you
just
need like
wanted
a
to
bit
share
of
that
a
part.
no, and I know I need to do that more. I'm trying to make more time for that, to do exactly that, like these time blocks to just quickly test. And essentially, you almost have like a checklist kind of system where it's like, quickly check this update. What exactly does it do? Is it, is this a bit overhyped, or is this actually useful? And then, flag it, almost kind of like a save for later. Like, okay, keep this one on the watch list, and others you can just, put a little no next to and say,
Yeah,
nothing really
and like
groundbreaking
what
here.
exactly happened is like day or two ago is like there was an update for an app that does like call transcripts, and it created
Right.
a lot of tasks for somebody, and they were like asking, why do I have all tasks from all my calls? And I investigated. It's because they updated the app, and now it can create tasks based on call transcripts. So that's something that's interesting. Like, imagine having a call that we are having right now. It analyzes the transcript. It can autofill the property with something, and then it
Right.
can also create you a couple of tasks based off the conversation. So that's something
Is that
that went under the
right?
radar, but it's pretty good.
And how do you, because I guess that kind of raises the question then of, when you're going through all the updates that are there and what's important, what's priority, anything that's currently affecting sort of ongoing processes, right? Like in this case, a call transcript integration that then pulls out tasks. Obviously, that needs to be high priority. Is that then also when you're going through updates, you're flagging, oh, this is actually something we actively use. Make sure that I stay. Is there a way to sort of flag that or to get notified? I don't know. Do you have anything that you use there? I know you're much better than I am in terms of staying on top of the latest HubSpot updates, but I often, when I kind of go into that list of updates, I don't have as structured of an approach as I think you do. But what would be a way to, do you go in and flag just based on scanning it, like, hey, this is something I'm actively using, flag, have a look at it. This is something that I know is not going to be useful. That anything
Yeah,
there that you use?
my approach is just like this, similar to you. Is like I like scan it like quickly, and I just do like what's new for me because I do it like probably every 4 days. And then if I think it's actively being used and it has value, then I just move it up on my like list to play with it. And that's the
Yeah.
only thing because but that's also like limitation. It will be better that if you can, and I didn't find it, you go to the product updates and then you somehow decide like the naming, like if the title contains this, send me an email. So like
Okay.
you just like
There you go. Yeah.
subscribe to a couple of like keywords. So if it's like a
Yeah.
call intelligence, anything that's titled or has a word in it,
Hmm.
send it to me like once a week. Anything that's
That's
I
a
don't
good idea.
know,
Filter those out a
marketing,
bit.
whatever attribution, let's say attribution, that's your
Yeah.
wheelhouse. It's like anything that's a wheelhouse product update or early beta, whatever, and has attribution in the title, send it my way. So that's like
Yep.
something that can be like beneficial. The same is what's
Hmm.
happening now with yeah, because other tools, not just HubSpot, because it's
Hmm.
like we said about like Lovable. So Lovable had like a backend. They use Supabase, and then at one point it's just Lovable Cloud. It's called now Lovable Cloud. But basically, what it is, they just build it on top of Supabase. They just call it Lovable Cloud. That's how I get it. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just like saved a step for an end user, me and you, to need to connect a Supabase, register a Supabase, build an account there, create a database. So now you can just prompt it and
Right.
say, I need a database. It will create it, and based of how big it is and what you need, it will just say, oh, put your card here. We will charge you $8 more a month. So yeah, and that's like you need to keep up with those things. And
Yeah.
then I use something on LinkedIn that's called My Feedy, if I'm pronouncing right. So what you can do, you go to let's say I go to your profile and you're sharing updates, or I have an interest while I'm following. So I can just subscribe and say MOPS, like marketing operations. And then I just open it, it's a Chrome extension, and click MOPS. So if you're there, I will just see your feed, anything that you posted. So I don't need
And
to,
what's the name of that?
my feed. Yeah, we can put it in the, we can ask our team to maybe put a link in the YouTube description. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna try it out.
yeah, I have like an AI feed. I have a like marketing feed. I have like just like general overall HubSpot people
That's
that I
good.
follow. And then I
Okay.
just
I
don't need
want.
to
Oh,
waste time scrolling LinkedIn because sometimes you
yeah.
see something and the LinkedIn like save something, save item. That's like
Right.
pretty lousy. Like you cannot
Yeah.
do anything, you cannot categorize it. So that's why I use it. But like, oh yeah, we I went off topic, but is there
Yeah.
any other issue you want to share?
No. To close that one out, because and I definitely want to see if I can use that extension as well. Because one thing that I was overly reliant on, and maybe sometimes still am, are the LinkedIn posts about people promoting whatever updates are there. That's typically how I would learn of the latest updates and interesting use cases. Until you kind of find out that half or whatever percentage of people, what they share is kind of BS. Like they'll just take the HubSpot. I'm talking HubSpot specifically now, but I guess it applies for multiple tools. Well, they'll take the launch notes, run this through ChatGPT, create some hype around it. OMG, this new update, game changer, blah blah blah, and then just post it. And then after a while, you don't really know what is actually a groundbreaking change and what is what isn't. So
Yeah.
I think
Don't
with any of
don't
these
trust
tools,
everything you read.
no, but with
Yeah,
any of
try
these
to
tools,
test it.
this is
Yeah.
with any of these tools, it's like there's always like a little bit of a cult-like mindset. I feel like I'm being overly negative here, but you get what I mean, right? Where there's folks who will just kind of be spokespeople for any kind of brand, and anytime there's a change, they're shouting it from the rooftops, and then yeah, you kind of need to filter that out through, I don't know, maybe these tools that you're saying, following the right people, because there's definitely a few folks when they're sharing things on LinkedIn that's, okay, you can tell that they've tried it. They've actually found a use case, maybe even share an example that's ideal. And then you have some real opinions. But yeah, but no, other than that, cool. I think some interesting things that I know we've been busy these weeks, so I know we've run into a lot more stories that we would be able to share. But yeah, we can save those for another time. You want to close us off, Stepan? Quick beer review. What is your beer of the week? And I know you have it with you now for a change, so that's good.
Yeah, I have it with me. So this beer, I had I drink it over the weekend. It's Mascarone. That's the guy that's brewing. He's like a gypsy brewer. He goes to big brewery and then brew it there. And it's a goblet. That's like a beer store. That's they just now relocated with like more space. They have like more than I would say 200 beer in fridges and more and even more, and then like probably 50 on tap. So we went there over the weekend. I got some beers. I tasted this one. It's a mountain pale ale. It's pretty good. It's not heavy. I like that type of like flavors. It's like a little hazy, and I just enjoyed it. And I wanted to review that one. But yeah, and if you have chance
Well,
to go in Zagreb in Croatia, you can go to Goblet Store because they have
it's a
pretty good.
Croatian beer.
It's Croatian
Is
beer.
it?
Yeah,
It's actually Croatian. Okay, nice,
yeah.
nice.
What about
Okay,
you?
on my end, and I've decided starting from the next week, I need to make sure I have more beers in the house because I'm usually drinking them over the weekends, and then I'm like, oh, I'll review this one, and then I don't have anything to show. So next time I just need to keep them with me. But Triple Karmeliet is the beer that I'm promoting. I know I stick to the Belgian beers quite often, but in my opinion, they are the best. Triple Karmeliet is another one, all-time favorites. Heavy beer, obviously, as the name suggests, it's a triple. 8.5%, something like that, quite strong. I quickly Googled it and it says vanilla extract. I always thought it tasted a little bit like caramel kind of thing. So it has like a sort of a sweet aftertaste kind of thing. It's very strong, super smooth. I love it. Not really much more to say except for it's hard to find anywhere abroad. I remember when we were living in Spain, they had it in a few bars. Obviously, in Belgium, you can go about getting it. And then here, there's a Belgian bar here in Dubai that recently added it to the menu. So I was excited to see that one. So Triple Carmelite, if you ever see it on a menu, definitely give that a try. I don't think I'm not sure if it's won any awards. If not, it maybe should have. It's a really good one. So that's mine for the week. And starting next week, I'll have some more beers on deck so I can pull up cans to the camera like you did. Although
Yeah,
Stefan,
it's.
that can look
I didn't
awfully
try
wet.
that
Something
one,
something tells
so
me something tells me that your beer was empty. But
yeah, it is. It is. But
there we go.
I didn't try the one that you mentioned, so I will probably bookmark that in my
Yeah,
Notion for like my beer list.
in your notion.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, but
We have tools for
yeah,
everything. I get it.
I like those type the beers also, especially like going into the like the holiday season and it's getting cold here. So I think
Oh
like the
yeah,
triple beers are pretty good. Like
yeah,
I love like
amazing.
it's better for me to have like one that's like heavier and it's like caramel, vanilla, whatever you mentioned. It's pretty good like having it in winter. So we'll be trying to
Yeah,
get this one.
exactly.
I don't know if I could will be able to, but yeah.
Yeah.
But do you want to like close us out for the what it is, fifth episode? So yeah.
Uh, yeah, no, all good. I think we'll play around a little bit more with sort of the topics. I do want to try a bit more of these approaches as well, where we'll share some just kind of use cases, stories, things that we've bumped into in the recent weeks. Try and combine that with some other more top of mind topics, I guess, sort of typical RevOps topics that we want to tackle as well. But yeah, we'll keep switching it up. I thought this was interesting to go back and forth and kind of see what the typical things are that we bump into. Um, that's it on my end. We'll see everybody next week.
Okay.
See
See
you,
you.
Stefan.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
man.